to be an entrepreneur. It's something which is really, it's a spirit. It's beyond anything else, and definitely to be a woman and to decide to do it, this spirit is just much stronger, and you have to really fight much more hurdles. So for those of us who had the opportunity to open our own businesses or to manage businesses and not to face those hardships, I just want you to know that through this research that we have done, it exists. So it's okay that we did not met it, or that we did not feel it. It is there. We think it's good to the country to have more women-owned businesses. We think it's good to the economy. And if 50% of the population is stronger, it's much better for the men. They're not alone in this hurdle of supporting families. And when I was asked the first time, why the hell am I doing it? I said, I'm doing it for my son. I really don't think that the men have to carry all the burden of supporting the families by themselves. So it's good to the 50% of the population. And really, we are here in this unbelievable project, which is called the Hiseg, which I had the great privilege to be part of it. But really, Heather ריסמן, which is going to talk about her business, built this place that I saw your faces when you walked in. Wow, what a nice place. So I remember that when the decision was made to buy this place, Heather was just upset. It's not perfect enough. No, when the walls are not really, it's not the right color, it's not that. So this last touch, even though really the team of Hiseg have made it, is really yours. So it is part of this scholarship that lone soldiers in Israel get, and there's no way I will ever really miss this unbelievable event that Heather and Jerry are doing once a year to really distribute those scholarships, which is another dimension of the diversity in Israel, another story of this country. So I will allow really Heather to present herself, and she'll be actually the first woman that will talk about her business, her experience, and what she learned from this unbelievable CV that I've distributed to all of you. So thank you, Heather.
Okay, shalom everyone. This building is here in order to support and embrace our scholars, and I'll tell you a bit about it and how Hiseg came to be. About 10 years ago, Jerry and I were on vacation in Greece. On our way, we were taking, in this trip, we were taking 5 other couples, all of whom have very significant reputations, and we were worried because there was a lot of turmoil in the Middle East at that time, and we were a bit concerned about putting our guests at risk. We were going to be on our boat, but we were still a bit concerned. And we called a friend of ours in Israel and told him that we were a bit worried about security at the Olympics and what might happen. And he suggested that we take 2 young former IDF members who are now in the security business. He said, take them on the boat with you, and they will make sure when you go off the boat, they'll check things, you know. And I knew from the background of them that he explained that these were 2 pretty fabulous guys. They were also very good looking. Very good. But anyway, they came on the boat. And every morning when Jerry and I would go out for our run, one of the guys would come with us to make sure we were totally safe. One morning, walking back from the run, we were explaining to this young fellow named Matan that we've been coming to Israel for many years, and we were really at the point where, of course, we contribute through all the major, we always contribute through JNF, and we always contribute through Combined Appeal, etc., but we wanted to do something more meaningful to get more engaged. We were walking, and he said, well, have you ever thought about doing anything for the Chaylim Bodedim, for the lone soldiers? And we didn't know anything about lone soldiers. It was not something that we had ever heard about. And he explained about what lone soldiers were and how his very best friend when he was in the army was a lone soldier. And he talked about how these are young people, young men and women who come from all over the world, who choose to make Aliyah because they are committed to Israel. They feel strong Zionist feeling. But often when they finish their service, they come, they immediately learn the language and then are recruited because they have to serve their time. And when they leave the service, the problem is they have no families here. And because they have no families and no one to fall back on, often they can't manage to stay, because that's the time when they have to go to university, and they can't manage to stay. So even though they want to, they try, they get jobs, or they get jobs, but even though they have tremendous potential, they have trouble paying for university. And he started to talk to us and he said, I'd like you to meet my best friend, how incredible he is. We were able to help him. And we were completely taken with this idea. Because of course, as we live in what's called the diaspora, and we feel so strongly committed, the notion that these young people are passionate modern day Zionists who care about Israel and care about what will happen to Israel, but often can't stay, struck us as, here's an opportunity, here's a problem that is really an opportunity. Maybe we can do something. And this is a bit of the background for what became this foundation. We made a decision that what we would do is we would connect with the IDF and ask them to make the lone soldiers, the Hailim Bodedim, who were coming off each year, who were graduating each year, to let them know that we would set up a scholarship program. And the scholarship would be really simple. If they earned the right to get the scholarship, we would pay all of their university for as long as they want to stay in university, all their room and board, and every single thing that they would need in order to pay full attention to their studies. Which is exactly what we did for our kids. Because we always said to our kids, as long as you're in school, we'll look after you. And the only thing they would need to do in return would be do well in school. They had to be young people who had a serious commitment to stay here forever. At least that's how they feel, that they would stay here forever. To do well in school and to contribute at least 15 hours a month of volunteer work during their whole time. That would be the requirement for the students. On our part, we were looking for the best of the best. And the mission of HESEG is to contribute in some small way to the young leadership pool in this country, so that over time, over the next several decades, there would be, in addition to whoever else grows up here, a group of young people who had already demonstrated at such a young age, huge amount of courage to leave their families and leave their homes, who would have served the country extremely well, who would have demonstrated leadership while in the IDF, and then we could help them go on to expand their horizons so that they could in fact be leaders to the country. And that's how HESEG started. And this building, which we bought, I think 2 or 3 years after we started the foundation, is essentially here to house the work of our team, but more importantly, as a place that all the HESEG scholars can consider their home. Wherever they are going to school, and even post-school, they can always consider this like their second home, as if it's our house, and it is their house also. So that's the building that you're in. And I encourage you, when we're finished talking here today, go upstairs through the building. We're in our 9th year. One of the most wonderful things that's happened to me as a result of this is that a colleague of ours here introduced me to Cofra. And I just have to say, you may take her for granted because she is in your midst all the time. But Cofra, you are an extraordinary woman on every count. From the second I met you, I fell in love with you. I wanted her to be my friend, which you can imagine. She has that kind of personality. But your warmth and your generosity of spirit and your willingness to always be at the other end of the phone for anything that we need, for sure, of the many, many, many benefits that I have received since making this big commitment to Israel, and we do lots of other things here now. For sure, one of the biggest things was meeting you, and I look forward to this friendship forever. So, yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so we'll get to so the reason that I'm up here standing in front of you, I will speak for 15 minutes or so, and then we can do whatever question and answers. And I have to say, of course, when Ofra called to ask if I would do this, there is nothing I wouldn't do, since she does so much for us all the time. But in addition to that, this group stands for everything that is at the core of who I am. First of all, we're women. Let's start with that. That's pretty special. But I am an entrepreneur in my DNA. I have started 4 businesses over the course of my career. I'll talk a tiny bit about it. And I'd have to say that entrepreneurship is not something that you decide to do or not. It's a calling. I mean, really, entrepreneurs, I think, are people who can't take direction from anybody else. That's basically an entrepreneur. We can't take we are congenitally unable to take direction. We have our way of thinking, and we need to follow our way. Hopefully, we can be good entrepreneurs and good leaders, so that in addition to having ideas, we can inspire others, embrace others, contribute to others who will follow us, because you don't get to be much of an entrepreneur if you can't get people to follow you. But first and foremost, we are people who have a view of how we want things done, and we're just that kind. And I'm sure you recognize yourself. Famous professor from Harvard, who is no longer alive, but a fellow named Abraham Zalesnik, he did an amazing study about entrepreneurs and discovered that the DNA of entrepreneurs and the DNA of criminals is very similar. And it was a serious reason. So first of all, I relate here because I know you are all entrepreneurs, and so am I. And as with any entrepreneur, you had to start with one idea, one employee, yourself, and you had to do everything. I mean, it was your idea. You set up the office, you buy the coffee urn, you buy the paper, you serve the customer, you sew the clothes, or you make the whatever it is you're making, or you deliver the service. You're one person. You're everybody in the company. And of course, I started exactly like that. And that experience is indelibly imprinted in my brain. So, number one, we're all entrepreneurs. I have a good reason for us to be connected. Second, I suspect that for most people, or many people in this room, how many people here are mothers? In addition to being okay, so we have something else in common, because there is no, once we're moms, there is no separating those things from who we are. And a huge part of what has influenced me throughout my entire career is that I'm a mother first. Will always be a mother first. I feel as a mother first. Now, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother of 9. Grandmother of 9. And I have always felt very fortunately grounded, very fortunately, and I feel fantastic about this, grounded in the fact that I'm a mother first. And I think to some extent, there is a natural, easy connection between entrepreneurship and being a mother. And I always I'm talking about women, not men here. Because the one thing about being an entrepreneur is you are committed to the business 24 hours a day, but you are in control of your own schedule. And being in control does deliver something. So I'll say a little bit about entrepreneurship. I want to say a little bit about it in the context of being a mom. And then finally, I was very attracted to the fact that this group, like so much of Israel, is such a diverse group. And I know that is at the essence of the society here, but it is particularly relevant to me. It is something I have cared about passionately all my life, and that is the idea of diversity and how people of different backgrounds can work together, and in particular, women from different backgrounds. And I have had a huge commitment my entire life to diversity, and then in particular issues related to equality in women and diversity in women's groups. So on 3 counts, to Ofra, to you, on 3 counts, I feel already at home in this group because we have a lot in common. So I'm just going to say a couple things about each of those and my experiences. And let me just start with the entrepreneurship. So today I run a business called Indigo. We are the largest booksellers in Canada. And I started this business in 1998. This particular, was the third business that I had started, so I started this business in 1998. It was not, I had never dreamed as a young kid that I would be in retail, which was not a business of interest, and I never thought that I would be in the book business. But it came about at a very interesting time in my life. For the first 17 years of my career, I founded and then led a management consulting firm that specialized in strategy and change. My background in psychology and then in information technology, and our firm dealt with strategy and change. It was the first strategic change firm in the world. I started it. My partner was a fellow who had just done a PhD at MIT. He was up in Montreal, which is where I lived at the time. We started this firm. I won't take you through that whole story. I did that for 17 years. At the end of that, I was recruited by one of my clients who ran a soft drink company. The soft drink company at the time was not that large by soft drink sizes. It was a company of about $70 million. But the chairman of the firm, I had been working with him, he was a client of mine, I had been working with him. He had an idea about how to grow the business, and I sold my part of the consulting firm. I was the major owner. I sold it to the other partners we had at the time, and I went to be president of this beverage company. Over just over 3 years, we grew the business from about 70 million to just shy of 800 million. Wow. So it was a massive growth. And I had a very exciting time during that. However, there was a lot of difference and a growing difference of opinion between me and the chairman. I was president. There was a chairman and chief executive. He had recruited me because he'd been my client. But there was a lot of difference of views between us. And we started to wrestle and wrestle. And one of the things that I did not find all that appealing was, other than the fact that he did demonstrate great respect for me, I found his general approach to women got in my way. Like, he would allow me to hire any women anywhere in the company. We had tons of affirmative action, etc. But it was not unusual for him in a meeting to tell a dirty joke or to make a comment. I mean, this is just would be a small thing in the moment, and it made me insane, like just crazy. I would say to him, you can't do this. Like, this is nonsense. Anyway, that was just one example. We had some difference of opinion, and as I say, I had always been an entrepreneur before, and that sense that I was not in control of the situation, I sort of worked myself up, and I walked in one day, and I walked into his office, and I said, Jerry, I'm out of here. Like, I didn't plan it well, I didn't write a nice letter. I think I had been building up this sense of discomfort with what was going on. I walked in and I said, I'm out of here, I'm going to give you a month to get it organized, I'll help, because I did have this most significant responsibility for running most of the company. That was not his thing. And so that was it. We went through this transformation. I spent my couple of weeks. I couldn't wait until the last day. And the last day came. It was a Friday. I went home. It was a weekend. I was so excited. I was out of there. And Monday morning I woke up and I was beside myself. I said, what did I do? What did I do? Here I was kind of, a bit of a star. I had been a big part of growing this business to such a great size. We were all over the world at that time. There was always like 15 pink slips, there were telephone slips they used to use at the time, those slips, they write messages. There was always 15 messages, a lineup of people outside my door who wanted to talk to me, meetings to go to. I was always, woke up Monday morning, I had nothing to do. And it coincided exactly with when my last child had gone off to university. Wow. So I had all these years, like first I ran this consulting firm and I had all these little kids and these babies, and then while they were growing up and I was running this company, and suddenly, nothing to do. The first day, that Monday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided I mean, what does a woman do when she's really at shopping? 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going shopping. I took myself to my favorite shoe store. Now, usually, because you're working and you're home, you're with the kids, you're busy, you don't have time, I could stop at the shoe store on any day at 4 minutes to 6 when they're going to close, and I could leave at 6 o'clock with 5 pair of shoes. No trouble. Here I am, I'm there at 1 o'clock, I have nothing to do, I can try them on, I can walk around, I could not make a decision. I couldn't choose. I realized I was like shell-shocked. I couldn't make a decision. First of all, I was saying, what am I doing here? At a shoe store at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, that's the worst. Like, these are the women I always wondered about. The women who had lunch and went to buy shoes. I couldn't make a decision. I went home, and I will just tell you that for a good 4 weeks, I didn't go out. And I was so discombobulated. I was due to go to a dinner that is given every year in Toronto by a very prominent gentleman in Toronto. And it's always a coveted dinner, who gets invited, who doesn't get invited. It's not a husband-wife kind of dinner. It's you have to be on the list. And, you know, last few years I'd been at that dinner. And I had to cancel. Like, I had to cancel because I knew the way they organized this dinner, you could tell by how close you sat to the host, your position. And I knew he wouldn't have the courage to call and say, you can't come. But I could imagine that, like, if there was a chair by the door, I was going to be in that chair. And I mean, everything about who I was, what I stood for was wrong. I called up the assistant and I said, you know, I'm really sorry, but I have the worst flu possible, I can't come. She said, it's too bad because you were seated right next to Mr. Bush. Yeah. But that's just to say what your own image is, just true story, what your own image is of yourself. Okay, so fast forward, I spend a couple of months, I literally can't figure out what to do. And the only joy I had was from reading, because I've loved books all my life. And I come across a book called Clicking, you know, like click, 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 a book called Clicking by a woman named Faith Popcorn. It's an old book, probably 15 years old. And the point of the book, and I think this is still relevant, the point of the book is about how some people, when they're working, are in gear and some aren't. And when you're in gear, it's like a car with a gear shift, when it's in gear, the engine just purrs and you're great. And when you're doing something that is not right, it's like when you're grinding the gears. The energy goes out the bottom, the car doesn't go forward. And the analogy was so powerful to me because I knew the first 18 years of my career when I was in consulting, I was in gear, and every day, almost every day was great. You know, the odd day you're not feeling well. And that for the last 2 years in this soft drink company, in this beverage company, it was always a push. And the book went on to talk about how it's important to be deliberate about what are the 4 or 5 conditions, circumstances that need to be in place in your work for you to feel great. What are the 4 or 5? So I made a list. I said, first of all, I need to believe in the product with all my heart, the product or service. I'm that kind of person. I need to personally believe in the product in order, or the service. When I was consulting, I thought we were doing the best consulting in the world. Whether it was true or not, I really believed that. I said, I have to believe in the product or service with all my heart. It has to be a business that I feel could grow to size, because I'm interested in that. And my specialty was in large system organizations. So I need to be able to build something of size. I need to feel like the business can give something back to the world. Because I am sort of, I started my social work is where I started, and I'm kind of a social worker at heart. And finally, I need to have the opportunity to explore things outside of just a small, narrow perspective. It needs to stimulate me. When I was doing consulting work, I was always stimulated, learning all the time, and it needs to be a business that I feel challenges my brain every day. So I made the list. Okay, now I have a list. By complete serendipity, out of the clear, I received a call from a friend of mine saying that there was a U.S. company called Borders, a big book company in the U.S., and that they were wanting to come to Canada, but Canada had a rule that said you couldn't sell books, and they still have this rule, you can't sell books in Canada unless you're partially owned by a Canadian. So he called me up and he said, look, and we were good friends, we sat on another board together, he called me up, he said, look, Borders wants to come to Canada, they need a Canadian to invest, I'm telling you it is the most unbelievable investment, they will guarantee your return, and as soon as they can get dispensation or the rule lifted, they'll give you your money back with a 10% compounded return. Hey, I didn't need to be that smart to know this is not a bad deal, I'm not worried about it, and I love books with all my heart. That is one of the things I really love. Anyway, the long and short, again, I won't take you through all, for reasons which are a story for another day. Borders ran into some challenges with the government, notwithstanding my willingness to invest. And already I was starting to think, I visited their stores, I was like, gee, I did it differently. I think their stores are a bit messy, I don't think their assortment is that great. Like, I'm a customer of bookstores. I was already starting to think about how I would do it differently, so when we discovered they couldn't come, I wasn't all that unhappy. But I knew nothing about the business. So I hired a consulting firm, and at this circumstance, okay, I was already 46 at the time, and I had made some money, so I had some money of my own. I hired a consulting firm to help me look at what it would take to start the business, and as a former consultant, I just put myself on the team. And we spent 3 months taking a look at what it would take, what the competitive dynamic was in Canada at that time, what was going on. And at the end of the 3 months, as with any consulting studies, has anybody here ever hired a consultant for anything? Anybody you have? It was as you would expect. There are a lot of good reasons you could succeed, and some reasons why you would fail. And I was only interested in success because, for me, I saw every single thing that I wanted. I loved the product like crazy. I personally felt I would buy everything, including my grocery store, in a bookstore if I could. I learned to read when I was 3. I own every single book I have ever received. I am insanely passionate about books and reading. To have a product I love. There was only one big player in Canada, and I thought they weren't partners with the largest in the world, Barnes & Noble, but I thought, hey, I could figure this out. And so I decided to start Indigo, and that was in 1997. The first 3 years of Indigo, and I'll quickly tell you the story because it will provoke some questions that you can ask after. The first 3 years of Indigo are like any entrepreneurial startup. Everything, every challenge you could imagine came our way. And the competitor was big, very well financed, and had the largest bookseller in the world as their partner. And everything we did, they tried to stop us. We were not yet in business for 3 months. We hadn't opened a store, and they sued me for $10 million for hiring one of their people, saying I was taking their secrets. Now, mind you, at the time, they were a $300 million company, and I hired a mid-level book buyer. Like a buyer. I hired a buyer. They sued me for $10 million. And that was the start. I countersued them. It's quite interesting. But anyway, that was the start of 3 years that were just unbelievable. Every time we went to sign a lease, and if anyone here is a retailer, obviously I just talked to someone who's in the fashion and retail business. Right, so you know, the leases are extremely important. Every time I went to sign a lease, they would try and get the landlord not to sign the lease with me and say they're bigger, they're stronger, their balance sheet is better. Anyway, there was an interesting lesson here, but I had to succeed. Like there was no way I would have done anything. I had to succeed. Failure was not an option. I had to succeed for my pride, but also because I loved it. It was an interesting strategic situation. that people here would be familiar with because you all have military background. Sometimes when you, pardon? Not everybody, but some. Sorry, not everybody. I don't have one either, but I don't have one either. But sometimes when you spend all your time trying to kill the other person, you weaken yourself. As opposed, and I think this is an important business lesson. Yes, you need to know your competition, and you need to keep a good eye on them. But an entrepreneur needs to look forward at the customer. That's who you need to keep your eye on.
I agree.
Who, right? Did someone just say they agree? No? Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Agree,
I
right?
don't care about competitors.
No, look at the customer.
My way.
Your way.
Exactly.
I was obsessed with the customer, which was me, and I think it's great when the entrepreneur feels that customer because you like it yourself, and you look your way, and you look to who the customer is and what the customer values, and from that you get your direction. So this competitor was so obsessed with killing me that he tried to take every piece of real estate, and he tried to win every battle, and in the process he weakened himself. He racked up too much debt. He tried to get a warehouse so big that they could advance so much faster than us, and he had trouble. One Christmas came, my third Christmas in the business. They couldn't get books. They had this new warehouse that was going to give the fastest possible service to the stores and just start the internet. They couldn't get books in. They couldn't get books out. They had a total disaster. And come February the 1st, their stock, which had been at $34, was down at $8. And they didn't control it. So it was publicly controlled. Now, I know some things about business, but my specialty is not acquisition. I could have called up. My specialty was not acquisition, but I live with a guy who's fantastic at it. And I'm not trying to ask for help from anybody, for sure not him. I went home, I sat down at dinner, I said, you know, Jer, look what's happening here. This stock is, and they have problems, and I know they're going to have problems, and anyway, long story short, David bought Goliath.
That's what I thought.
David
I wanted to tell you.
David
You probably
bought
bought him.
We bought him.
Exactly.
So now we acquired, and they were way bigger than us. At the time, Indigo was about 100 million. So we've had a good 3 years. It was about 100 million. Doesn't matter. Could have been 10 million, and I actually think getting to the first 500,000 is the big challenge, because if you can get to 500,000, you can build anything. So I just want to say that. I truly believe that. If you can get a business to 500,000, you can get it to anything. Because that's the hard part, 0 to 500,000. So anyway, we acquired Chapters, and now I had the dominant position, over 50% of the book market, 55% of the book market in Canada, which is phenomenal. But we had the job of integrating the companies, which is a big job. But we had a phenomenal run, and we brought Indigo into 2009 to become the leading bookseller in the world on every dimension. We had the highest sales per square foot. We had the highest average transaction. We had the longest time customers spent in the store. And the, what we call NPS.
Yes.
NPS, yeah, you use NPS here? Yeah, you know, the ratings, the customer ratings were unbelievable. We had a 68% NPS, which is unbelievable. That's 68% of people who say they would wildly recommend you to someone else.
Now,
So
what's
we did.
important is the profit.
Okay.
It's not only the turnaround.
So, okay.
What's
so,
left
all
for
right.
all this profit?
What's
That
left?
is the most
It's a good
important.
question. So when Indigo was just ready to acquire, we were making very little money. Because we
You
had,
see?
we were making very little money because we were building the business. We were making very little money. At the end of that run, we moved from having approximately 1% EBITDA, 1% earnings, right, to 9.2%.
Wow.
I borrowed 175 million to acquire the business, and I paid off all of it.
Wonderful.
Right?
It's a public company?
It's a public company. So it was a great story. And I was feeling fantastic. And it was time to not have to work quite so hard, to not be so bad. You know, I saw it as we would grow, we would continue to grow. But And at the absolute height of feeling so fantastic, e-books. The advent of e-technology. Amazon introduces the Kindle. And I knew the second I saw it. You have one. I'd rather you have a Kobo, but I'll get to that in a minute. I knew the second I saw it that the book business would never be the same again. Never. I didn't think then, and I don't think today, that physical books are going away. And I'm curious, how many people here read 100% digitally?
What?
How many people here read only digital?
Nobody.
How many people read both digital and physical?
If it wasn't for Shabbat, I would read only digital.
Only digital. Okay.
But on Shabbat.
On Shabbat. So how many people read digital and physical?
Do you mean books?
Yeah, how many people read physical books and digital books?
Digital books.
And how many people only read physical? So you see, it's so many years after. Sefer, yeah, Sefer.
Not a newspaper.
Yeah, for books. Sefer, I'm talking about. Okay, so. Okay? So now I'm in a position where I know that the business will never be the same, and even though physical books won't go away, I don't have to tell anybody in this room, even if 20%, 25%, 30%, then there's no profit. Then there's none.
That's what I thought.
Right. So I had a very lucky circumstance. My chief technology officer was actually a rocket scientist, for real. He was a software rocket scientist. Again, it's another story. How did I end up with a rocket scientist? But I won't tell that story now. And I will just quickly tell you that we decided it was early enough in the advent of this technology that we were going to go into the digital business. And we did start a company called Kobo, and we made a strategic decision that to go head-to-head with Amazon in the United States was not a smart thing, but that what we could do was quickly dominate Canada and build partnerships with booksellers in many other countries in the world, all of whom would be afraid of Amazon, and the publishers wanted us to succeed. And we launched Kobo in 2010, 2009, end of 2009, 2010, and it grew like wildfire.
It's a great device.
It's a great device, the Kobo. Yeah, it's a great device. The first one was just so-so. The second one was rated by Fast Company as the best e-reader in the world, ahead of Barnes & Noble and Amazon. There was just a rating in Engadget a month ago about the latest one. It's unbelievable. So it grew like crazy. It took all the cash I had built up on my balance sheet. I had to put a good amount in here. And then a year ago, I got a call from a Japanese company called Rakuten. Some of you might know Rakuten.
Yep.
They were interested in buying Kobo. And I knew that while we had a rocket ship in our hands, and we had a rocket ship, that the longer term was against Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Noble I wasn't worried about, and they're like for phone now, but I wasn't worried about them. But I knew that long term, I didn't have the pockets to play. That at the beginning I could, and so we sold it. We put, in total, 45 million into the business, and we took out 330 million. Wow.
Wonderful.
I want to say that, because I'm going to come to the mistakes. Like I'm telling you the high points. It's fun when you get to tell the story about it. Don't worry, I'm going to think. Now where am I? I'm at a very challenging moment. We sold the digital business and kept 5 years of the right to 50% of the profits on ebooks sold in Canada. But now I have, in Indigo, we have 100 large format stores and about 160 small format stores. So we have 270 stores in total. And I have to reinvent the business. And we are in the process of reinventing Indigo from a bookstore with a little bit of stuff to a lifestyle store. I can tell you in question and answer what we're doing. It's the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Right now, our business is still in the down. So in retail, every year you want to be bigger. We're running negative, but not nearly as negative as any other bookseller in the world, because we've introduced some of our other products. So we run about negative, this quarter will be about negative 4% to last year, but typical booksellers in the world are running negative 15 and 20. So we're starting to build the gap. We are not losing money, we're making a bit of money, but nothing like the money we used to make, nothing. And we're investing hugely in the transformation of the business, because I intend to have a combination of books and other products that we develop ourselves, which I'm happy to answer question and answer. I won't take you through it all now, but it is essentially a lifestyle store, books and other products in a couple of key areas. I have had so many nights of worry in this transformation. I can tell you that the number of nights I wake up at 3 in the morning, 8,000 people work for us. And of course, there are all the challenges. Having said that, we are making astounding progress at reshaping the company. Astounding progress. Do I worry? Yes. Am I enormously optimistic that Indigo will reshape as a book lover's lifestyle store? Yes. My ambition is to take Indigo outside of Canada, because once we are not only books, there's a bigger opportunity for us. And I have to say that at least 90% of the time I get up, I go to work, and it fulfills all those items that were on my list. I believe in our product, not just our books. We have beautiful paper product. We do tabletop, joy of the table. It's something that I've always been passionate. We expanded our kids, which was books only, to kids, and starting educational toys and then all toys. So we've taken a series of the book departments and we've added other products to discuss the end experience, to engage with the customer on the end experience. Of course, both online and digitally. I love the products we sell. It's a chance, we continue to have a chance to build a big business. We set up a number of years ago, we set up a foundation called the Love of Reading Foundation, and we give a significant amount every year to under-resourced schools all across Canada, so it fills my desire to be making a difference on reading and literacy. And in total, I would say that I feel privileged every day when I go to work. Do I worry? Yes. Trust me, I worry. Do I sweat and wonder? Yes. But I feel privileged every day to go to work. And the joy of being an entrepreneur and being able to now, for the 4th time, create, which I think is the entrepreneur's luxury, that we get to create. It's like being an artist. I think to be an entrepreneur is a kind of artistry, because you're imagining something that isn't there and you're putting it out. So it's fantastic, and I love it. I want to just say a little something about, before I open to question and answer, a little something about this issue of women and work. Because women talk to me all the time about this, both within my company and outside my company, and after all, I have 3 daughters and a daughter-in-law. So this has been a subject close to me from the time I started to work. And some of you may know there's a book out now called Leaning In.
Yeah.
Okay. It's had huge reviews, and on this, I know there's some media here, right?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to make the next comment off the press.
Okay.
Okay, will you honor that?
Yep.
Sheryl Sandberg's an extraordinary woman, like by any standards. I mean, just awe-inspiring. I had some challenges with that book. And I say for the women I know, and particularly the young women I know, their problem isn't leaning in. If they leaned in anymore, they'd fall over. The challenge of work and home, and sometimes they have a parent that might need something, is really significant. And many young women come to talk to me, so some of you could be past that stage, but some of you could still be at that stage with young children. But if you're past it, then other women are talking to you about it. I can only share my own view, the view that I share with other women all the time that I feel so strongly about. We have a lifetime to build a career. We have a very short time when our children are babies and those early formative years, whether you define that as 1 year or 3 years or 4 years, depends on the parent. But if you have the option to balance the amount you work and the amount you can be home. If you have, I understand, some people don't. But if you have the option, I always say to women, lean out. Lean out. Lean on the side of spending as much time as possible. One, for ourselves. Like, you only get to be a mom of babies for a short time. It's like gone. And it's delicious. And because those early years are so formative. They're so formative. So if you have the option, even if you're going to work, pick work that you have more control over and maybe don't work so hard. Because you have a long time to work. I'm 65. And I expect to work, I hope, if I'm healthy. I hope I work for another 30 years.
You don't want to retire, no?
No way. No way. And I have been working since I'm 24, so it's a long career. And so I think that notion of understanding and being able, if you're in that stage yourself, to give yourself some permission not to be the biggest and the fastest so quickly. And if you're influencing other women or talking to other women to feel comfortable to share that message, I share that message always whenever I can. Because I think there is no equality in the world if the only way to be equal is to give up being women and mothers. Okay? We want equality. We don't want the same. We want equality. So I just share that part with you. And I would just say in closing that I come back to that little few words I said at the end of the story, that I shared with you all the high points. And it's great. And at my stage, I would like it to be high points because, I've worked for a long time. But I have had many failures over the course of this career. I've tried things that didn't work. I started things that didn't work. I've had moments when I thought, wow, I won't get something together. I don't know, any entrepreneur takes a risk. And if you risk, you don't win all the time. In fact, if you're not risking and making mistakes or losing some, it's not clear that you're actually risking. And I would never want the story that I tell to come across as this, rocket ship that's always up, because it isn't. And I know what it's like to have a real failure, and I know what it's like to worry unbelievably about the success of something. And I've probably made every kind of mistake, every leadership mistake, every business decision mistake. I could fill a good-sized book easily. Easily, and I don't say this in anything but the most sincere manner. I could write a good-sized book on the things from the mistakes. But if you stay at the table, and that would be my last message, the most important thing for an entrepreneur, stay at the table. Do not give up. Stay at the table. Because if the original idea maybe is not quite right, you'll morph it. You'll change it. Stay at the table. Don't be too hard on yourself. And if possible, have someone who believes in you even more than you believe in yourself to talk to when you have those moments that you wonder. Thank you.